Unlike in previous versions, Google Analytics 4 offers built-in event tracking capabilities called enhanced measurement. But what if you want to track some additional events? In this video, we will take a look at how to track events with Google Analytics 4 and Google Tag Manager. Hey, my name is Julius and welcome to the Analytics Mania YouTube channel, where you can learn Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. And if you want to be up to date with GA4, then consider subscribing to this channel. By default, Google Analytics 4 is capable of tracking scrolling, outbound link clicks, searches, and several other events. But you should not limit yourself just to those events. For example, did you know that built-in scroll tracking in Google Analytics 4 tracks only those interactions where visitors scroll below 90% of the page height? But what if you want to track other thresholds as well? For example, 25%, 50, 75. And what if you want to track custom events like form submissions, logins, or others? For that, you will need to use Google Tag Manager or gtag.js. In this video, I will be using Google Tag Manager. But below this video, you will find a link to another tutorial where I show some event tracking examples with gtag. In this video, I presume that you have already installed Google Analytics 4. If you haven't yet, then take a look at the description of this video, where I will share a link to a blog post and a video tutorial that explains how can you do that. In this video, I'm going to cover the following topics. First of all, we will take a look at the automatic tracked events. Then we will take a look at the enhanced measurement, which is also part of the automatic tracking, but it tracks some additional events that were not available in Universal Analytics, for example, such as clicks, scrolling, and so on. Then we will take a look at some recommended events. So if you want to track something that is not automatically tracked, then there is a list of events that Google recommends you to implement. If you have some event in mind and that one is not mentioned among recommended events, then you can send them as custom events. And then this video will be ended with creating new events directly from the interface of GA4 and how to modify your incoming events, because sometimes events might contain certain errors, and the fastest way for you to do that might be using the modify events feature. So when you install Google Analytics 4, by default, it will be able to track certain events. Speaking of website events, here they are. Let's start with first session. So this event is fired when you land as a visitor on a website for the first time ever. Then there is session start. So this event is automatically tracked every time a new session starts in Google Analytics 4. By default, session duration is 30 minutes. So if, let's say, you as a visitor land on a website in the morning, and then later on that very same day you land on a website, let's say in the evening, it will start a new session. And then there is user engagement event. There are more nuances about this event, so if you want to learn more, I will post a link to a blog post below this video. But in general, this event fires when a visitor spends at least 10 seconds on a page and goes to another page of your website. When it comes to mobile app tracking, there are more automatically tracked events. And if you want to learn more about them, I will also post a link below the video. Now let's move to the enhanced measurement. You can find its settings by going to your Google Analytics 4 property, then clicking on admin, then data streams, and then selecting your website data stream. And here you will see the enhanced measurement section, where you can see what kind of events are tracked automatically. If you want, you can disable this feature altogether by clicking this toggle button, or you can disable them one by one, or maybe even configure something by clicking this gear icon. Pages are always tracked automatically, so you cannot disable them, but if you want, you can also track things like scrolling. So if a visitor scrolls below the 90% of the page height, then an event called scroll will be dispatched and tracked by Google Analytics 4. Then there is outbound click tracking. So if a visitor clicks a link on your website and that link opens a website that belongs to another domain, then you will get a click event. And you will also be able to see what kind of link was clicked. Then there is site search. So if your website has a search feature and your website has something like search and then my keyword, for example, then Google Analytics 4 can be configured to track this parameter and display in reports this particular keyword. So you will be able to know what kind of things are your visitors looking for on a website. If you click Show Advanced Settings, you will see the default parameters that are automatically recognized by Google Analytics 4. But if your website is using something else, then you can add them with a comma. So for example, if your website is using something like search results, this will be recognized by Google Analytics 4. And then there is video engagement event. So this applies to embedded YouTube video players on a website. But it is important to know that those websites must have an additional parameter
included in the code of the video player in order to Google Analytics 4 to recognize those video interaction events. If you want to learn more about that parameter, you can click this link. And finally, there is file downloads. So if you have some links on your website and those links open, let's say PDF files, maybe Word files, Excel files, then Google Analytics 4 will track a file download event. And together with that event, you will also see what kind of link was clicked. That way you will be able to recognize what kind of files are clicked the most often. Speaking of file downloads, here are supported file types. Maybe in the future this list will be extended, but right now, as of the moment of recording this video, they are supported by GA4. Let's take a look at how those events are tracked and how that data is displayed in Google Analytics 4. Here I am on a demo website, and on this website I have installed Google Analytics 4 with Google Tag Manager. So this means that Google Tag Manager's code snippet is added to the source code of the website, and then I created one tag, which is Google Analytics 4 configuration tag. This is the measurement ID of my data stream that is right here. So when this tag fires, it will enable enhanced measurement, and I will start seeing some events in, let's say, debug view of Google Analytics 4. So let's enable the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. I will do that by clicking the preview button. Then I will copy the URL of the page. Then I will paste it right here, click connect, and then I will go to the debug view of Google Analytics 4. So let's go to GA4, then configure, then debug view. And here I should start seeing some events like page view, for example. Now let's scroll to the bottom of the page. Then let's go back to Google Analytics 4 debug view. And here I should also expect to see an event which is called scroll, because I have passed the 90% of the page height. And here is that event. If I click it, one of the parameters will be % scrolled, and it will be 90%, because that's how this event works. It fires only when I scroll below the 90% of the page height. Please ignore these parameters because this is my test property and these are inherited from my previous tests. So in your case, you won't be seeing this. Now let's take a look at some other examples. For example, here I have outbound link click tracking page. So this is a link that belongs to another domain. This is one domain, and this link will open my Analytics Mania website. So if I click it, then in the debug view, I should see an event called click. And here is that event. If I click it, I will see certain click data like link domain. So this is the link of the URL that I clicked, then the actual full URL, then outbound. If it is true, then it means that the link belongs to another domain that is not part of your business. Now, speaking of where can you see that data in Google Analytics 4 interface, there are several places. But keep in mind that when you start sending data to GA4, it takes for up to 24 hours to display that data in actual interface. So don't expect real-time or near real-time display of the data. So one of the places where you will see event data is in the events section under the configure. So this is just a list of events that were tracked by Google Analytics 4. This will include enhanced measurement events, custom events, recommended events, and basically everything that you send to GA4. Then you can go to reports, and in the engagement section, click events. And here you will see some information about your events. But basically you will see just the name of the event. And if you click, let's say on scroll, you will see a closer look at that event. But if you're setting some additional parameters with the event and those parameters are not custom dimensions, then you won't be able to see them right here. Maybe in the future this will change, but right now, if you want to access some parameters about the events, you will need to create custom reports. So go to Explore, then let's say Freeform, and then let's create a report with outbound link clicks. So in the dimensions, we have the event name, but we also want to know the actual URL that was clicked. And that dimension is called link URL. If you want to use some dimension in the report, you have to add it to the variables column first. So in the dimensions section, click plus, and then in the search field, look for link URL. Click checkbox, then import, and now it is available right here. Now let's remove the predefined options that are city and device category, and instead in the rows let's add the link URL, because we want that each row would be a separate link URL. So now once I added it, I see that the first item is empty. That is because right now we're looking at all events that happened on a page, and obviously not all events were link clicks. So we have to narrow down, and in the filters section, click anywhere and then say that we want to look only at those events where event name exactly matches. Well, file download, I don't see that because still not enough time has passed. So maybe let's try another event because I know that I have definitely tracked that in the past, and that is outbound link click. So instead of event name exactly matches file download, let's just use click. Then apply. And also we can select, let's say, last 3 months. And since this is a demo property and not a lot of outbound link clicks were clicked, I see only one row. Anyway, if I had more data and if I had more outbound links on the page, then I would see that each row is a separate outbound link. Speaking of metrics, right now I see only active users, but if I want to see how many times each event was clicked, I could add another metric, which is event count. And now we see that this link was clicked 3 times in the last 3 months. If you are curious what other dimensions are available when it comes to enhanced measurement, you can take a look right here. So click dimensions, plus, and then enter, for example, video. So these parameters are related to enhanced measurement. Then we have link, and then you see these parameters. Then I think there's also scroll, so percent scrolled. Then when it comes to site search, so the parameter is called search term, and that's it. Now let's move to another category of events, which is recommended events. If you want to track events such as purchase or add to cart, you will notice that they are not tracked automatically. And this is logical because websites are coded in different ways. They store data in different structures. Therefore, it is nearly impossible for Google Analytics to automatically track such information. Since Google Analytics 4 is quite flexible, you can send any event names that you want or parameters. However, if your event falls under a certain recommended event naming convention, then I would recommend that you do that and you follow those recommendations. So if you want to find out what kind of events are recommended in Google Analytics 4, and I mean naming convention and data structure, just go to Google search and enter GA4 recommended events. And then you should find the official documentation of GA4. Click that link. And here you will see a list of various events. For example, here we have things like sign up. So if you have a registration form on your website, then it is recommended to track the sign up event. Then we have login, purchase, and if you want, you can click on a particular event. And this will redirect you to a developer documentation where you can see parameters, their format, and also their descriptions. Below the table, you will see a sample code snippet if you decide to use G-Tag to implement event tracking instead of Google Tag Manager. But if you have watched other videos on my channel, you know that I'm a big fan of Google Tag Manager. So let's try to track one of the recommended events, and let's see how can we do that with GTM. So first of all, I will go back to the list of all recommended events, and on my demo website, I have this fake login page. So when I enter username and password, I will then be redirected to my account. So if you go to the recommended events, you will see that one of the events right here is login. I can click it, and there's one parameter which is optional because in the required column you see no. So if you want, you can send this. If you don't, then you can skip this. And in the context of login, method might be the way how the user logged in to your website. Maybe you have just one login method, which is email and password, but also maybe you have login with Google or login with Facebook or maybe some other login method. And if you have multiple options and you want to see which options are used the most often, then you can send this parameter together with the login event. So now let's check what is happening on the login page. I have enabled my Google Tag Manager preview mode, and I have asked a developer to push the login information to the page that comes after I successfully log in. So I will enter something like, let's say test.test.com, and like this, I click login, and then here it says you have logged in. Obviously, again, this is demo page, so I don't have anything meaningful right here. But then in the preview mode, I have an event login. So this is what I have asked my developer to push to the data layer. And then I click on login and I can expand this data layer push. And here it is. It says event login and user ID is 123. So this would be useful if I decided to implement user ID tracking with Google Analytics 4. But this is a topic for another video, so let's ignore this right now. What is important for us right now is just the fact that login occurred. And if the next time I log out of my account and log in again, your developer's code should once again push that login to the data layer. If you have no idea what data layer is, then I have some introduction video and I will post a link to it below the video. So if we want to send the login event to Google Analytics 4, we have to go to GTM, then in the tags section, click New, click on Tag Configuration, and then click GA4 Event. If you have no idea what Google Tag Manager is and you want some introduction, then I have a tutorial about it and you will find a link to it below the video. Here we should select our existing Google Analytics 4 configuration tag, because this tag will inherit certain settings of this configuration tag. For example, measurement ID. So when this tag fires, Google Tag Manager will know to which exact property should we send this event. And in the event name field, we should enter the name that is mentioned in the documentation of Google Analytics 4 recommended events. And that event is, well, login. So let's enter login. And then in the triggering section, we have to configure when exactly do we want this tag to fire. And in our case, that is when login is pushed to the data layer. In Google Tag Manager, conditions are called triggers. So in the triggering section, let's create a trigger that will mean that we want to fire on this login data layer push. In Google Tag Manager, let's click triggering and then click the plus icon and then click on trigger configuration, because right now we are going to create a new trigger, or in other words, the condition when the tag is supposed to fire. Click anywhere, then click custom event. And here we should enter the same name that we see right here or right here. So login without quotation marks. Login, then I will name it. For example, like this. Here you can enter whatever you want, but here it must be exactly login because it is login right here. And then click save. This trigger was automatically added to a tag. So when a login event appears in the data layer, this tag will fire and Google Tag Manager will send the login event to Google Analytics 4. Let's name this tag G4 event and login. Click preview. Here I am on the login page and I will enter my login info and click login. Then I go to the preview mode and I click on the login event, and here I see that my Google Analytics 4 tag has fired. Now let's check if the data has actually received Google Analytics 4. So let's go to GA4, configure, debug view, and here I should expect to see the login event. And here it is, login event. So far, so good. Now let's do another thing. Let's say that we have multiple login methods on our website. So what we could do is that we can send together with the login event the parameter method. Let's do that. Here I am in the Google Analytics 4 event tag that I have previously created. And let's add an additional parameter. And we can do that by clicking event parameters section, click add row, and here you should enter the parameter name that you see right here. So method, all lowercase, method. And here, if I had some login method information in the data layer, I could insert a variable of Google Tag Manager that dynamically returns the value of the method. But since I don't have that, let's say that this tag is responsible only for the email login. So I will just send the word email. Let's test how this method is displayed in the debug view. I will click save, refresh the preview mode by clicking the preview button, then click continue and then log in. I have logged in. Here is the login event. The tag has fired. And if I click on that tag, I can switch between names and values. And here we can see what kind of information was sent to Google Analytics. Now let's check GA once again, the debug view, and see if we see that information in the debug view. And here it is, login. I click on it and there's also a method parameter which says emails. So I, as a visitor, have logged in via my email and password. If you want to start seeing this method dimension in reports such as exploration, you will have to register it as a custom dimension, because by default, at least right now, it will not be displayed in the interface even after 24 hours. I mean, you see it right here, but you won't be able to use it in other parts of the interface. So to do that, you will have to go to custom definitions. Then in the custom dimensions section, click create custom dimensions. And here you should enter something like method. Then in the event parameter field, you must enter method exactly like this, because this is the value that we saw in the preview mode and in the debug view. The scope must be event because this parameter is applied to a single event. Description can remain empty, and then click save. So after you implement your event tracking and after you create this dimension, then you will need to wait 24 hours. And from that moment, you will start seeing this dimension in your reports. Also, don't forget that when you properly test your setup, you will need to publish these changes live so that other visitors will also be tracked with Google Analytics 4. And you can do that by clicking the submit button, then entering the version name and hitting publish. And now let's take a look at custom events. If you want to track some event and you cannot see anything in the recommended event list, then you are free to come up with your own name or parameter. Let's say that on my demo website, I want to track when someone clicks on any of these menu items. And I want to have a dedicated event for that. Let's say that I will call it menu link click. Now, if you go to the list of recommended events, you won't find anything related to that. That is why I just can come up with my own name. So first, let's check how can we configure a trigger in Google Tag Manager. I have already enabled the preview mode, and now I will click a bunch of links, and I do that by holding the control key in order to open those links in a new tab. So this one, this one, this one, I think 3 are enough. And now let's go to the preview mode of Google Tag Manager, and here I have 3 links. This is the first link, the second link, and the third link. Now let's go to the data layer, and I see some information about the link click. This is the URL, or in other words, the click URL that was clicked, another URL, and we have some additional information right here. However, if we want to use it in Google Tag Manager, we must have them as variables. But if you go to variables section right here, you won't find anything related to clicks. So to do that, you have to go to Google Tag Manager, variables, and we have to enable built-in click variables. So we can do that by clicking configure, and then click checkboxes next to all click variables right here. Well, actually, I had click ID enabled, but we have more options right here. Also, if you don't see the link click events in your Google Tag Manager container, you then should create at least one link click trigger in your container. So you should go to triggers, new, trigger configuration, and then just links. Don't change anything, and then name it something like all link clicks. The reason why I saw the click event, even though I didn't have the trigger created, is because I have enabled enhanced measurement in Google Analytics 4. So because of some technical nuances, enhanced measurement makes the link click events available in the Google Tag Manager preview mode. So once I have created the trigger, the variables, I click preview to refresh the preview mode. And let's click the links once again. I will click this one, then this one, and then in the preview mode, let's click on the link click event right here. And in the variables section, we have that click information right here. None of the links has the click ID, so that is unfortunate. Then click element, if you are a beginner, that is too advanced for you. So don't try to use something like click element contains and something, because that will not work. Instead, what we can take a look at is the click classes variable, because right now we're looking for a way of how to identify that the link click happened not on any link, but on the menu item. If I click these 3 events, I will see that their click classes is the same, and that click class is site nav link. Nav in this case means navigation, or in other words, menu. If I click, let's say, on other link, like on this name of the site, and then I check that link click, its class is different. So I could say that if link click occurs and click classes contains site nav link, it could be my condition to send an event to Google Analytics 4. So I have copied this site nav link. By the way, keep in mind that every website is different. So in your case, the class names might be different. There might not be even any classes at all. So click tracking is sometimes quite tricky, and it depends on many things. But in my case, I'm quite lucky because click classes is unique enough. Now let's go to Google Tag Manager, and I already have created a link click trigger. If you haven't yet, then again, click new, then trigger configuration, just links. And since I already have that, I just click this one, and I will make it more precise. Instead of tracking all link clicks, I will track only navigation link clicks. So I click some link clicks, click classes, contains, and this one. And now this trigger is not for all link clicks. It is just for those link clicks that are of the menu item. So click save. And now let's create a tag, because when a click on the menu item occurs, I want to send an event to Google Analytics 4. I can do that by going to tags, clicking new, tag configuration, and then GA4 event. Again, I select my GA4 configuration tag, and here we have to enter some event name. As I've said before, there's nothing related to menu link clicks in the list of recommended events. That is why I will just come up with my own event name, which is menu link click. And then together with that event, I could send some additional parameters because I want to know what kind of menu item was clicked. So I could say something like menu item name and menu item link, maybe, I don't know, something like that. Right now, coming up with some made up parameters, and they will work in Google Analytics 4 if I configure them properly. So if you come up with some parameter that you want to use in Google Analytics 4, you are free to do so. However, keep in mind that later you will need to register them as custom dimensions, and there is a limit of 50 custom dimensions per GA4 property. First of all, if you want to send some custom parameter, you have to enter it in the parameter name right here, and then you need to enter value. So when it comes to item name, I could say that the click text would be enough for me. In fact, if I go to the preview mode, then I select one of those menu link click events, I will see that click text contains the actual text of the URL of the link. So I could use click text as the value of my menu item name. I can insert that value by clicking this button and then entering click text. So it means that when this event occurs, Google Tag Manager will replace this part with the actual value of the variable that was at that particular moment. So when on this event the tag fires, the value of the variable will be subscribe. On this event, it will be GTM course. Oh, sorry, no, this one is unrelated because this will not be tracked because of the different class. But in this case, it will be blog. In this case, it will be home. And in the menu item link value, we could insert another variable, which is click URL. It will return the actual URL of the link that was clicked. So we can do that by clicking the Lego button right here and then choosing click URL. In the triggering section, let's select the condition when we want this tag to fire. And we want to do that every time a link is clicked right here. And luckily, we have already created a trigger for that. So in the triggering section, click anywhere and then select that link clicks menu trigger. And that's it. So now let's name this tag. I usually name them like that, event, and then the name of the event, and click save. Now let's test this with Google Tag Manager. Click preview. Now let's click on the first link, let's say on fourth link, the fifth link. Then I go to the preview mode and I see that if I click on this link click, the tag has fired. It fired successfully. The same happened right here. So the tag fired 3 times in total. I mean, this tag. And now let's go to the debug view of Google Analytics 4. So in the configure, click debug view. And here we can see menu link click events right here. I can click on it, and among some automatically tracked parameters, I can also see the menu item link and menu item name parameters. But you won't be able to use them in the interface of GA4 unless you register them as custom dimensions, because these are definitely custom. They are not mentioned anywhere in the documentation of Google Analytics 4. So to do that, we have to go to custom definitions, and while being in custom dimensions section, click create custom dimensions, and then enter some descriptive name that you want to see in your reports. For example, menu item link, then scope should be event, and then in the parameter field, we must enter exactly as it is right here, which is menu item link. We want to tell Google Analytics 4 that menu underscore item underscore link is our custom dimension that we are going to register right here. So menu item link. Click save. And then do the same thing for another parameter, which is menu item name. So create custom dimensions, menu item name, scope again event, and then menu item name. Click save. When you do that, and then when you publish your Google Tag Manager changes, you will need to wait for up to 24 hours. After that time passes, then you will start seeing the dimension in your Google Analytics 4 interface. For example, you will be able to use that in explorations. You will be able to see that in the reports. So for example, in the reports, you will start seeing, well, we should go to the engagement and events. And in this list, here you will start seeing menu link click. If you don't see it, then you should show more rows per page, for example, 100. And when you click on that menu link click, I see it right now because in the past I have also sent the event with the same name. And here you will see some additional widgets. Well, right now I don't see them because I haven't registered the dimensions before, but here you will see some additional widgets and tables that will contain information about these two custom parameters, menu item name and menu item link, because you have registered them as custom dimensions. And that is how you can track custom events with Google Analytics 4. The next two features that I want to quickly review are related to event tracking configuration, but that configuration is done not in Google Tag Manager, but in GA4. And that is create new events or modify events. Both features can be found in the configure, then events, and here you will find modify event and create event. So create event allows you to create an event based on another incoming event in Google Analytics 4. For example, by default, Google Analytics is capable of tracking page views. But what if some page views are more important? Let's say you have thank you page. Since Google Analytics 4 is an event-based tool and a lot of emphasis is put on events and their names, what you could do is that you could create another event name that is called thank you page view. And that way, when you log into your Google Analytics 4 report, you will quickly see the total number of page views and also the number of thank you page view visits. So here's a quick process of how can you do that. Click on create event, then click create, and here you should enter the new name of the event that you want to track. So for example, as I've said, it can be thank you page view or something like that. And now you have to configure when should this event be automatically created in Google Analytics 4. And we can enter something like this. Every time event name equals to page view, make sure it is with underscore and all lowercase because that is the name of the event that is tracked automatically by GA. But in this case, we want to be more specific. We are looking only for certain page views. And we can add another condition where page location contains, let's say, thank you, because that is part of the URL of our thank you page. So if a visitor lands on a page, this event is dispatched and its URL contains this part, we will have one more event in Google Analytics 4 that will be named like this. And this will happen every time this condition is met. And also with this event, we have all the parameters that were available in the page view event as well, because this checkbox is created. Click create, and that's it. So if you had this page on your website, you could now visit that site and then open the debug view of your Google Analytics 4. And together with that page view event, you will also see thank you page view event. Another reason why this is useful is because you could now mark this particular event as a conversion. And you could do that by going to conversions in the configure section, click new conversion event, and then just enter the name of your newly created event. So every time a visitor lands on a website, a regular page view event will be fired. But when your visitor goes to your thank you page, another event will be created, and that will be thank you page view, and it will be also marked as a conversion, or in other words, as a more important event in your tracking setup. So then you can click save, and within 24 hours after you start collecting some data and your visitors land on that thank you page, you will get some information right here. And now let's take a look at the modify event feature. So let's say that I have a situation where I'm tracking when a visitor adds payment method at the checkout. Now the problem with that event is that it is not named properly. So if I go to the debug view, in my case, I will see that there is an event, but it is called add payment info, and we have uppercase A, P, and I. Now the problem with this is that in the list of recommended events, add payment info is all lowercase. Google Analytics 4 and JavaScript in general is case sensitive. So it means that add payment info with lowercase is not with the uppercase. Therefore, some reporting might be off in my property. So what could I do is obviously the first option could be to ask a developer to fix this, because let's say that this code is not coming from Google Tag Manager so that I could fix it. It is coming from the hard-coded snippet. But also let's say that in this situation, the developer is not available, but I have to find some quick fix soon. So what could I do is that I could use the modify events feature, and I could rename this event in order to make it proper and in order to follow the documentation of Google Analytics 4. So I could do that by clicking modify event, create, and then I need to give some name for this modification. So let's say that I will name it like add payment info fix. And then now I have to enter some condition when I want to apply this modification. So in my case, it should be if event name equals at payment info, then I want to modify a parameter which is also event name. So instead of at payment info with uppercase letters, I will change it to at payment info, just as it is mentioned in the official documentation of GA4. Click save, and now let's see how this works. So let's say that right now I have added payment info on my demo page. So now I should go to the analytics and debug view under the configure tab right here. And here I should expect to see add payment info not with uppercase A, P, and I, but with all lowercase letters. And here it is. Modify event feature fixed my problem. If I click on this event, I will see that there's a parameter that is called checkout option, and it looks like it is also incorrect because C and O are uppercase. So we can go and further improve our modification. So go to events, modify event, then add payment info fix, and then we can modify additional parameter that is checkout option because it is all lowercase. And we want this new parameter to reuse the value of that checkout option that we had in the debug view. So now I will duplicate the debug view so that we could easily compare the data. I will go to the debug view and then add payment info. So what are we going to do is that it is not easy to rename the existing parameter. Instead, I will create a new parameter with the correct name, and then I will remove this checkout option. So now I'm going to create a new parameter, which is the correct checkout option, and I can dynamically insert the value of this parameter. And I can do that by entering the original name of the parameter, but it should be surrounded by double square brackets like this. So after we create this new parameter, we have to remove our existing incorrect parameter, which is this one. And that can be done just by entering the parameter name in this field without any additional symbols. And we should leave this field empty. So it means that this will be removed. Let's save and let's see if this worked. So now I will pretend on my demo page that I have once again added payment info. And now let's see what we have in the debug view. Here's the add payment info, and here we have checkout option, which is all lowercase, which is correct, and its value is still PayPal. So we have created a new parameter and we have removed the incorrect one.
And that is how you can track events with Google Analytics 4 and Google Tag Manager. There are really cool capabilities in the interface. For example, the ability to modify events or create new events based on other events. Since GA4 is event-based, these features definitely make sense. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics 4, then consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.